You know that feeling, right? That little whisper in the back of your head when you're enjoying something you think you shouldn't be? Well, that's what we're diving into today, the guilty pleasure. We're going to deconstruct it and figure out what's really going on in our brains when that feeling hits. I mean, come on, you've definitely done it. We all have. Maybe it's that one song you're only blast in the car when you're totally alone, or that ridiculous reality show you'd never, ever admit to binge watching. It feels like such a personal secret, but it's actually a super universal experience. So the big question is, where does that guilt even come from? Oh man, the list goes on and on, doesn't it? From the full-throated rock of Nickelback to the pure, sugary pop of boy bands, or that ridiculously catchy 80s synth track that just gets stuck in your head, we slap this guilty pleasure label on so many things. And in doing so, we create this kind of strange secret club of stuff we love but aren't supposed to.
Okay, so let's get into the good stuff, the science. Because that feeling of guilt, it isn't really about the song or the movie itself. It's about this really fascinating battle that's happening right inside your own mind.
So the big psychological idea we need to understand here is called cognitive dissonance. It's just a fancy term for that really uncomfortable kind of staticky feeling you get when your actions don't match up with your beliefs. And believe me, this is the engine that drives the whole guilty pleasure train. This right here, this is the conflict in a nutshell. You've got one belief rumbling around in your head. People with good taste, sophisticated people, don't like this. But then you have this other very real feeling. Oh my gosh, I actually love this. That contradiction creates mental tension, and that tension is what we end up calling guilt. To see just how far our minds will go to fix this feeling, let's look at this amazing old study by a couple of psychologists, Festinger and Carl Smith. So they had people do the most mind-numbingly dull task you can imagine, just turning pegs on a board for an hour. Then they asked them to lie, to tell the next person in line that the task was super exciting. Here's the kicker. They paid one group $20 for the lie, but another group only $1. Okay, now you have to see these results because they are completely counterintuitive. The group that got paid just a single dollar said they enjoyed the boring task way more than the group that got paid 20. So, what on earth is going on there? It all boils down to one word, justification. See, the people who got $20 had an easy out. They could think, yeah, I lied, but hey, $20 is $20, no big deal. But the $1 group, they had a real problem. A single dollar just wasn't enough money to justify lying. So to get rid of that uncomfortable dissonance, their brains did something incredible. They actually changed their own memory. They convinced themselves that, you know what, that task, it was actually kind of fun. So we know our brains are working overtime inside our heads to solve these little conflicts. But here's the thing. That conflict doesn't just come from within. Our tastes are also a kind of performance for everybody else, and that adds a whole other layer of crazy pressure. And this brings us to something called social desirability bias. It's really just our deep-seated natural instinct to want to fit in, to be seen in a good light by our friends, our family, our peers. So we start curating our tastes, sometimes consciously, sometimes not, to match what we think other people will approve of. And what's wild is that this bias kind of comes in two different flavors. First, you've got impression management. That's the obvious one. It's when you deliberately hide your love for a cheesy pop song to seem cool. But then there's the sneakier one, self-deceptive enhancement. That's when you've told yourself for so long that you only like serious, important music that you actually start to believe it, even as you're secretly tapping your foot to a boy band. I mean, this quote just absolutely nails it, right? Our social circles become these unofficial gatekeepers of what's considered good taste. And if you break those unwritten rules, it can feel like a real social misstep. So we push what we truly enjoy into the shadows. But wait, because here comes the twist. Sometimes admitting you like a guilty pleasure can actually be a high status move. It's a way of broadcasting, hey, I'm so secure in my own awesome taste that I'm above all this snobbery. I can enjoy this so-called trash and not care what you think. It becomes its own kind of social power play. So we've got these internal mind games and these external social pressures. But what if the whole idea of feeling guilty about enjoying something is the actual problem here? A lot of thinkers are starting to argue that the term itself is just totally wrong. The writer Ariel Zibrock makes such a powerful point here. She suggests that this guilt doesn't just pop up out of nowhere.
It comes from this constant cultural pressure that says everything we do, even our free time, has to be productive or educational or somehow improving us. Just enjoying something for the pure pleasure of it, that's seen as lazy or frivolous.
And maybe guilt isn't even the right word for what we're feeling. Thinkers like Brené Brown draw a huge line between guilt and shame. Guilt is I did a bad thing. Shame is I am bad. And when you think about it, liking a bad movie doesn't mean you did anything wrong. That feeling is much closer to shame, this sense that your taste says something negative about you as a person. This really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Why do we all just accept this idea that our Netflix history or our Spotify Wrapped is some kind of moral report card? It's a system for ranking each other that, frankly, doesn't really help anyone. So if all this guilt is basically manufactured by our brains and our culture, then maybe the solution is actually pretty simple. Maybe we can just decide to get rid of it. And that's the real takeaway here. The concept itself is a trap. It's a label we stick on things to apologize for our own enjoyment, to get ahead of any judgment from other people or even from ourselves. I love how the critic Catherine Coldiron puts it. Seriously, unless your enjoyment of something is actually hurting another person, what is there to feel guilty about? Pleasure is its own reward. You wouldn't want to live on a diet of nothing but kale, right? Your cultural life shouldn't be like that either. So next time you feel that little twinge of guilt, just remember what's really going on. It's not about the art. It's that cognitive dissonance firing in your brain. It's that social pressure to perform your taste for others. And it's that nagging cultural voice telling you that your free time should always be productive. Which brings us to this one last thought. Maybe that feeling of guilt doesn't mean you have bad taste at all. Maybe all it does is reveal the invisible social rules you're living under and the incredible, fascinating ways your brain tries to navigate them. So go on, enjoy what you enjoy. No apology and zero guilt required.